any of those techniques are being, easy to find? Are they the same techniques that a known group has put out? Those are the things, and the behavioral science people are basically fingerprinting this person or persons, or maybe it's different people, maybe it's a copycat. But, all this stuff's on the grease board, Neil. You got this big grease board with all the possibilities, and that's how the investigative process works. And they look at all the particular ways. At least a good investigative team does that, and they don't leave anything. It couldn't be that, or it couldn't be this. It could be anything at this point. But it's nasty. It's murder. It certainly is terror. People are terrorized by these types of things, whether it's domestic, whether it's just somebody who's mentally deranged, whether it's somebody like we're used to seeing. I don't think it's that, but who knows? But it's a good team down there, from what I can see. We got the bureau there, we got the police department, we've got ATF and the command centers. I'm looking at them right now on your screen.
Yeah.
So they're going to do a good job, and people are going to be calling in thousands of leads. It's always it's interesting. You put out numbers, and you do get thousands, at least in my experience in New York. And the quest there is to sift through thousands of things, and where do you put limited resources for the standpoint of interviewing all these people?
Yeah, James Carlstrom, thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Neil. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, my friend. Thank you. In the meantime, the former Attorney General Eric Holder calling Jeff Sessions a yes man for the president. How about those times that Sessions went against the president's wishes? Or all the times, I guess, in the case of Eric Holder, he rarely did that with his boss. After this. And I kept denying that I didn't plow into the garage with the new car. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders saying again today, the president is not considering firing Bob Mueller. To John Roberts at the White House with the latest on that. They just protest too much. What's going on?
Shows the difference in your lifestyle to mine. I was the guy who was protesting his innocence and throwing the baseball through the window, not driving the family car.
By then I was driving. Right.
You lived in the upscale neighborhood, Neil, not me.
True.
Yeah, so Sarah Sanders today at the press briefing said that, again, the president is not thinking about, nor does he have any intention to fire the special counsel Robert Mueller, but he's definitely beefing up his outside legal team to deal with what they believe is now a critical phase in this investigation. The president hiring an old Washington hand, Joe DeGeneva, used to be the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. He also helped prosecute Jonathan Pollard, the Israeli spy, helped prosecute John Hinckley, who tried to assassinate President Reagan. And he is a firm believer, and he articulated this back in January on Tucker Carlson's show, that there was a conspiracy at the highest levels of the FBI to exonerate Hillary Clinton of any wrongdoing in the email investigation, and if she lost, to try to frame President Trump on a false charge. And he still believes that to this day. The president's outside legal team also tried to bring on another, what would have been very high-profile, high-powered attorney, well-known in the D.C. area, the former Solicitor General Ted Olson. Apparently there was an outreach that was made to Ted Olson to see if he might be available to come on board, or if there were too many potential conflicts of interest with his law firm for him to come on board. It was determined that there were too many potential conflicts of interest, so Olson will not, at least in the foreseeable future, be joining the president's outside legal team. While Sarah Sanders was saying the president has no intention to fire Robert Mueller, it's pretty clear that the president is frustrated and angry at the whole thing, tweeting over the weekend that it's a witch hunt, that it should never have it should never have happened in the first place. Listen to what Sarah Sanders said a short time ago at the briefing.
The president has been very clear about the fact that there was no collusion between his campaign and any other entity. However, to pretend like going through this absurd process for over a year would not bring frustration seems a little bit ridiculous. I don't think that any individual, including members of Congress, would like it if they had been accused of taking their seat in Congress by doing something nefarious when they hadn't, particularly if it went on for more than a year into their time in office. My guess is they would be more than anxious to push back and certainly would defend themselves.
So the White House saying that there is a certain amount of frustration that the president has in, at least a good part of the American population believing that he was not fairly elected to the presidency. And here's something else, Neil. It's going to be no end of frustration for the White House as well. It's a declaration from a fellow named Ron Slay, who says in this declaration that he administered a polygraph test to Stormy Daniels back in 2011. Here's a picture of her taking that polygraph test, in which she, according to Ron Slay, truthfully answered that she had sex with Donald Trump in 2006, and that he later said that he would get her on The Apprentice. So this is another shot in the PR war as Stormy Daniels tries to get out from that non-disclosure agreement that she signed with Michael Cohen, one that would penalize her $1 million for every infraction. Cohen has already said that he believes Stormy Daniels owes him $20 million. And we'll keep following the saga. Neil?
That's what you do, my friend, and do so very, very well. John Roberts at the White House. He's the
Don't
best.
hit the garage, Neil.
Yeah, fine. All right. Meanwhile, what does our Fox News senior judicial analyst make of all of this? I'm talking about Judge Anna Napolitano. The Mueller thing, first off, before we get to the story. No, you can't follow Stormy Daniels or Stormy Roberts for that. But let me ask a little bit about the Mueller thing. They keep saying, no, we're not going to do this. Speaker Ryan today is saying, no, they're telling us they're not going to do this, not going to fire him and all. But they are raising the ante a little bit here.
You and I both know Donald Trump personally as well as professionally. He's the type to wake up one morning and say, that's it, I've had enough, I'm firing him, without consulting anybody. So when they say he's not planning to fire him, I believe that's true. He's not planning to fire him. But he's not going to count noses, I think. He's just going to do it someday when he's had enough.
But he must know the fallout.
Yes.
Right?
Everybody
What do you think it would be? Let's play that out for me. If he were.
Well, Lindsey Graham has said it will be the beginning of the end of his presidency. I don't know if he means that it'll be impeachment proceedings. I think there will be more than a 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress to institutionalize Bob Mueller's office. Now, there's some constitutional issues with that. Congress can create the office of special counsel, but Congress can't appoint the special counsel because he's in the executive branch. So there's a constitutional wrinkle there. But I think this will aggravate more than 2/3 of both houses. And 2/3 of both houses can get away with almost anything.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, this separate effort that Republicans and Democrats who want to protect Mueller from that happening. Is that doable?
I am of the view that Bob Mueller is a responsible, honest, intelligent, above-board guy. He's in an awkward position. He's got a president who now is throwing Trumpian tweets at him after having laid low for a while. And I think Bob Mueller has the respect of members on both sides of the aisle. But God only knows what would happen if the president just one morning says, that's it. Now, he can't fire him directly. We're going to go through the Nixon thing again. He's got to order the Attorney General to do it. The Attorney General's recused. He's got to order Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, to do it. If he refuses and resigns, then he's got to order the Solicitor General to do it, which is, again, the Nixon model. The Solicitor General was Robert Bork.
That's right.
He fired Professor Archibald Cox, and along came Leon Jaworski. There might be
a longer chain of command to go through in this case, right?
Yes. There actually is one more person in there in the hierarchy of the DOJ.
Security guard?
Who just resigned. I think having nothing to do with this. So that office is now vacant.
Let me get your quick take on where you think all of this is going and what you're reading into the timeline on all of this.
Bill Hemmer asked me that the other day, and I said, Bill, if you had asked me about a month ago, I would have said, I think this will wrap up in 2018. I have since said here and in writing that grand jury is going to be sitting well into 2019.
Wow.
That Bob Mueller, who people have said over by Thanksgiving, over by Christmas, he's dialing it back. He is not. He is ramping it up. And one of the keys to this, in my view, has been Rick Gates, who has become a treasure trove of new, I'll use John Roberts' phrase, rabbit holes down which Bob Mueller is sending investigators to see what evidence is there.
Eric Holder had said of Jeff Sessions that now and then you got to stand up to the president of the United States, indicating that he believes he does not.
Well, I have disagreed with Eric Holder on so many things, but I think he's put his finger on a very interesting area of permanent conflict between the Attorney General of the United States, who was sworn to uphold the laws as Congress has written them and the courts have interpreted them, and who has ethical obligations, and the President of the United States, who has policy preferences and who's answerable to the public. That is often a clash. And the Justice Department is that unique executive department which has to be semi-independent, because there may be laws the President doesn't want enforced for political reasons. The DOJ has to enforce them anyway. So I'm partly with former Attorney General Holder on this. On the other hand, I can see that frustration in the president. He's got a good chunk of the DOJ being run by people that are strangers to him and adversaries to him, and that can't be happy.
Yeah. All right, Judge, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's not enough that he went to Princeton, but to be on top at Princeton, I mean, that angers me deeply as a fellow Italian-American. I think he's showing off.
I never lied about my hand in the cookie
Please,
jar.
yeah.
I just took the cookie.
Senior Capitol Hill producer and resident genius, Chad Pergram, on what happens next. Chad? Help me through
Scalise is right. Yeah, Scalise is right. They have to file the bill tonight. And the reason is that Republicans in the House of Representatives have what they call the 3-day rule. It's really not 3 days. It's the parts of 3 days. It's 24 hours and 2 seconds. So in other words, if they file the bill today, that gives members parts of 3 days, today, Wednesday, and then Thursday, to then consider the bill in the House of Representatives on Thursday. Scalise says that they're looking at 167 Republicans who should be able to vote for this bill. That's the number that voted for the broader budget agreement back in February. And then they need help from the Democrats. The minority leader, I should say, in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, indicated earlier that they're getting close, the Democrats are, to signing off on this deal. So this is going to be a bipartisan arrangement. The bigger question is the timetable of getting this through the Senate, because the government is funded through 11:59 p.m. on Friday night. So if the House is able to move expeditiously on Thursday, things take longer in the Senate. You might remember that Senator Rand Paul, who was on your air just a bit ago, he had indicated he was quiet about what he might do here. He single-handedly forced a short overnight government shutdown back in February, but they're coming up on this 2-week recess for Easter and Passover. There are a lot of foreign trips scheduled. Members want to get back to their districts to campaign. It is an election year. And Neil, somewhere in this building is an air duct. And when we get close to these big recesses, this is going to be a 2-week recess, they start to pump through BTUs of jet fumes. This gives members kind of the idea, we got to wrap this up and get to the airport. And sometime probably in the next 24 to 48 hours, they will start to crank up the BTUs on the jet fumes and try to get people out of Dodge. Neil.
All right. Now, as for this other quick measure where they want to try to make the individual tax cuts permanent, that going anywhere at all?
Yeah, well, we haven't seen the bill text. We don't think there's going to be any provisions on that. We don't think there's going to be any provisions on DACA. It was interesting earlier today that the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, indicated that the fixed NICS, the background check, he didn't rule that out. So that's incomplete until we see the bill text later tonight.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Encyclopedia, Chet Pergram, the very best. All right. The former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta will be joining us on Your World tomorrow at 4 p.m. What he makes of this back and forth and all this infighting, constitutional crisis, all of that. So much to get into. The 5 is right now.